All right. Welcome to the new JLI course, Beyond Right, a 6-week course on Jewish civil law and Jewish values. And we'll begin with a joke. So the Epstein family decides to take a trip from America to Israel. And they travel around the country and they come to Tel Aviv and it's very crowded and they're looking for a parking spot. And sure enough, they see a area where there's a bunch of cars are parked. So they park the car and they see a police officer standing outside. So they ask the police officer, "Am I permitted to park here?" And he says, "Don't you read the sign? You cannot park here." So Mr. Epstein says, "Oh, how about the people? How about all the other people that are parked here?" Because they didn't ask. So asking, in Yiddish, there's an expression, "Fragen a Shaila is treif." Asking makes things really complicated, right? In life, if you start asking questions, things can become complicated. Now, easiest, that's right. Now, why I'm excited about this course is because, I studied in a yeshiva for many years. Yeshiva is a Jewish high school, into college, into college age. And what do you think we study in the yeshiva? So I studied in yeshiva literally for like 7 years or so. What do you think the majority of the time we study in yeshiva? Anybody? Torah? Talmud, exactly, Talmud. But we study 3/4 of the time in yeshiva, we study Talmud. What is the Talmud? Talmud is the work of mainly of Jewish civil law, discusses Jewish civil law. Why would we spend years and years studying Jewish civil law, legal law, when a lot of it is not applicable? Why do I have to know the law? I'm not a lawyer, right? Secular, in the secular legal system, who studies law? People want to become lawyers, right? You want to become a layman. If you're a layman, you don't need to study law. All you have to do is have to have a good lawyer. We welcome all our lawyers here, right? So why is the Judaism is so obsessed with studying the Talmuds? So today we're gonna give you a little glimpse into what the Talmud is all about, why it's so critical in Jewish teaching to study Jewish civil law. So we begin with today's class will be about good neighbors, the laws of damages and disputes. We're going to present 4 or 5 different case studies that we're going to debate together. And we're going to ask you to give your input. We're going to ask what do you think the secular law looks at these cases versus a Jewish law. Now, what is the idea of laws anyways? I didn't answer yet why we study Talmud. We're just studying a lot of Jewish law. I didn't answer you why, right? Why do you think we study Talmud? Anybody? Why is it important to study Talmud? Jewish legal law.
There's no boundaries.
There's no boundaries if you don't know the law.
If there is no law, there are no boundaries.
If there's no, that's why we need laws in place in the first place, right? But why do we study Jewish law? Why are we all sitting here and want to study Jewish law? Why do we yeshiva spend? Yes.
I think it's you guys are the people. You want to go under what you prioritize as a Jew.
Okay.
You have people who behave yourself, everything from free speech, how we should be speaking to each other and about each other. like gossip.
Clean speak.
Clean.
Clean speak. Those on Zoom, you can't hear what people are saying, but Linda said, excellent, to guide us how to live a life, to guide us how to behave. Excellent, yes.
And
Practical application of a lot of the theoretical can be found in application by the law. They're both somewhat connected, so when you're dealing with all types of issues, you have.
When you're dealing with practical questions and practical issues, you can look back in Talmud that discusses theoretical questions. That's a good answer, but that would be a good answer for a lawyer, right? I don't need to know the lawyer needs to know the cases so he can present the cases. He can figure it out. Why does every Jewish kid, my children in Jewish day school, they all study Mishnah and Talmud from starting at 10, 11. They start to learn Talmud, not because they want to become rabbis. And in my job as a rabbi, I'm not a rabbinical judge. I'm not a rabbinical lawyer. I'm a rabbi who primarily officiates rituals, right? I teach, I lead services for the funerals, bar mitzvahs. The Talmud has very little about that. Mostly it's about civil law. When mostly like you also don't know, the Talmud famously has a discussion. For example, if two people find a garment on the street, right? And they're both fighting over it, who gets ownership? Or if my ox gores my neighbor's ox or my neighbor's dog, right? Who's liable for the damages? If my fire, my property goes into the other property, my fence falls into, all these questions are really civil questions that the Talmud discusses back and forth. Very nice, interesting. Why is it so important that we learn it? Let the lawyers know it, and then I'll have a question. I'll go to them. Yes, anybody else? Yeah.
our morals.
Our
Morals and traditions are regulated by Jewish law.
Excellent. Our morals and traditions are regulated by Jewish law. Like that. Thank you.
So it's basically, it's a compass. It's our compass.
The compass. Okay, good. What else, Sima?
I think because the Jews were always kind of isolated from everybody, living in smoke, and everything. And they kind of, because of the small community, we have to respect each other, we have to learn how to.
We need to know how to live with each other.
Yes.
Excellent. A guide to how to live with each other. Yes, what else?
From the Tania class.
Yeah.
Become Bainani in Russian.
Exactly. To guide us our behavior, our moral behaviors. I wish that the Talmud will give us a 10-page guide on moral behavior. If you would study the Talmud is large and huge. If you would study Talmud one page, which is considered a double page in Talmud, and there's a curriculum of people that study called the Daf Yomi. It will take you over 7 years to finish the whole Talmud, right? Over 7 years. And in yeshiva we don't sit and go through the whole Talmud page by page. Rather, we can sit on one page for several weeks and discuss the page and argue and debate and go deeper and deeper. So here's the concept. Most societies need to have laws, because we need to have guidelines of how to live. We need to, if everyone does whatever they want, you don't have a society. So society values are expressed in its laws. The United States has laws, European laws, and the Torah has also its laws. In addition to religious laws, like in the Ten Commandments, right? The Ten Commandments almost like are almost half and half. Have you noticed? There are laws between how to behave between us and God, and then how to behave between man and man. Don't steal, don't kill, etc. You have ritual laws, like how to keep the Shabbos, how to pray, and then you have civil laws. Torah, right after giving a sign, like after giving the Ten Commandments, the first portion, the first parsha begins, these are the civil Jewish laws, a whole portion. So what is so special about, what makes Jewish law unique? We're going to learn this today. What is law seeking to achieve anyhow? So in secular law, we know we have the Bill of Rights, right? What's the Bill of Rights? What's the idea behind the Bill of Rights? Why was those laws created? Anybody?
To guarantee a fairness to all citizens of the United States, a fair.
Okay, exactly. Like what? Like what? Which freedom are we talking about?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. What else?
Freedom of thought,
Yeah.
freedom of ownership, freedom of,
Freedom of ownership, freedom of what else?
It's what they call fundamental rights everybody should have under the government.
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of religion.
Association, property, right not to have.
Assembly.
Assembly, right to due process.
Right. So absolutely. So basically, we have that every person has the right to liberty, protect the rights of the individuals, right? And we need to have those laws in place to maintain public order. So in other words, we have the laws that govern the people how to live. What is Jewish about Jewish law? So my friends, this is important, and we're going to give that introduction, then we're going to go to the case studies. So let's stay focused. I want you to open up text. We're going to skip text 1 and go to text 2. In your textbooks, you have many texts. This text was put together by the Jewish Learning Institute. Sometimes we read some of the texts, some of them will skip them. Just because I'm skip them, you're free to read them afterwards. Sometimes I mention them, and there's no need to read them again. Typically, I have somebody in the crowd who wants to volunteer to read. Yep. Page 5, on page 5. All right, so what's the question? The question is, why do we need Jewish civil law? What is Jewish about civil law? So a Spanish great scholar by the name of Rabbi Abarbanel in the 13th century writes as follows in text 2. Does everyone have a book? Huh? Yep. For every human society requires laws. What is the advantage of God's Torah laws over the legal system set up by other nations? Why does the verse state that these are the laws you shall set before them, Exodus 21:1, which is right after the Ten Commandments, thereby telling us that these laws are unique divine system exclusively given to us by God. The reason for this is that the divine laws contain elements absent from other legal systems. God's laws are based on the principles of compassion and goodness. So what is he writing here? God says in Exodus, look at the screen, these are the laws that you shall set before them. Which law is he talking about? What type of law? He's talking about civil law. All the laws in the Torah come from God, taught by Moshe on the mountain. We're still going to see a little video on that. Now, we don't have a video from Moshe on the mountain, but there'll be an animation that gives the historic background. When God says these are the laws, he's referring specifically, or he's emphasizing not only the 10 Commandments, but all the laws that I'm giving you, the 613 laws, many of them are civil laws. And why the need? Because they are God's laws, built on what? On the premise of compassion and goodness. Look in next text. In Deuteronomy, text 3, on page 6. Diligently observe God's commandments that he has commanded you. Do what is right and good in God's eyes. In other words, the difference between secular law and Jewish law is not, secular law is not about what is my rights. It's not here to protect my rights, and that's only or mainly. Rather, the question is, what is the right thing to do? God wants us to do the right thing. God wants us to be good and compassionate. So these laws are built on that premise. All right? So look at here, the system of criminal and civil law, them to the Jewish people, do what is right and good in God's eyes. So in secular law, where the emphasis is regulate society to keep within the rules, Jewish law, God's law, is a guide society to excel and be good. Now you see on the screen, we have two different animations, two different, what are they called? Yes. What's the first one? The first one is what? He's a referee. The second one is what? A coach. Why did they pick these two little characters? Because what's the difference between a referee? If you have a sports game, right? What's the difference between a referee? If the referee is going to give a speech to the players, what's the speech going to be about? The rules, right? These are the rules of the game. Keep to the rules. What is the coach speech going to be about when he talks to the players? Huh?
Oh, doing good.
Doing good, achieve your maximum. Go, encouraging them to do the best they can, right? It's not like the referee. You see, in life, we have different figures in our life as well. We have a policeman, we have a law enforcement guy, we have lawyers. These are our referees more. Then you have mentors, rabbis, right? Teachers who are here to guide us. So this is a great example how the difference between secular law and Jewish law. Secular law is set up like a referee, right? In order to keep society in check, that there should be no chaos. The laws were established to keep the people in check. Well, I need to. If it's about rights, it's about rights. I need to protect his right over her right, right? Because rights, if everybody is about my rights, obviously there's going to be a clash, right? What's the expression? Your right to hit somebody goes until. What's the expression?
To my nose.
Till your nose, yeah, till your nose, right? I can put my fist like this, but I can't go into your nose, right? Because now it's my right versus your right. Which one comes first? It's all about being a referee system. Jewish law is like a coach. A coach gives guidance. The Torah is the playbook, is the instructions, how to live life. So the laws are established not based on just what I must do, right? And to keep everyone in check. But the laws were here to give us the guidance, to give us the values, the ethics, to conduct myself, as we read, to be good and compassionate, compassion and goodness. And now with this introduction, you'll see slowly how Jewish law can be very, very different than secular law when it comes to civil law, because civil law looks at very much from one angle, and Jewish law looks at it from an angle of compassion and goodness. And when you start looking from compassion and goodness, there can be inner conflicts, right? How far do you have to go to show compassion? But what's most important, and that's why we teach Talmud, the laws are not here just to teach us how to be good lawyers, what's the legal ramification, what's the deal. Rather, when we study Jewish law, we get to learn the soul, the spirits. We get to learn the values that come along with it. So so when we study Talmud, all these different theoretical cases, not just to become an expert in law, but more important, I get to understand, I get to see how Torah, how God wants us to live a life with goodness and compassion, with values, and then I can take these ideas and concepts and incorporate in my day-to-day life, right? So example, if a car is stuck on the side of the road, do you have to stop and help the person? No, but Jewish law says, perhaps, that you have an obligation to stop and help him. If you have the ability to stop and help him, it's not about my rights, his right. I have my rights to go to the beach. Here, the question is, what is the right thing to do?
If you are able to help, you should stop.
But we're going to see not only, I'm not saying we're not going to discuss different cases, not only you should stop, but perhaps you must stop. That changes everything.
Good.
They say a story, I'm not sure it's true or not, that the police stopped an African-American guy in New York, and they checked his belongings, and they found a yarmulke and a pair of tzitzis in his trunk. So they started, why do you have a yarmulke in the trunk? Are you trying to do some trouble? He says, no, my mother told me that if I'm ever stuck on the side of the road, if I wear a yarmulke and tzitzis, for a few seconds, a Jew will stop and help you.
Somebody will help.
Help you. So now, this is just an anecdote. Does it mean we have to stop just for the Jew? No, we have to stop and help everyone. Anyways, but that's just a little thing. Anyways, so let's review quickly. Here's another thing. Secular law And let's read first text 4. That's what text 4. Everyone's following on Zoom, you good? I don't see you, but if everyone's good, awesome.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Text 4, page 7. There are two types of laws. There are laws that create life and laws created by life. Human laws are created by life. God's Torah is a divine law that creates life. All right? So secular law created by life, it's to regulate society, and it's studied by legal professionals. Jewish law creates life. God is the one who created the law. God was the one who created life. It is shaped society and studied by all members of the society. And I know, I'm sure we're going to see that in secular law, many of those values are taken from the Talmud. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes they clash to, which direction do you go? All right. So let's now jump in, and the question is, when is doing the right thing an obligation? Because like the car outside the road, we said it'd be nice to stop, right? But let's discuss now. We're going to bring 4 case studies. We're going to have fun. 4 case studies, and we're going to discuss it based on secular law and based on what Jewish law will say. And you're going to be the judge now. All right, I want your input. So let's start with case study A. I need somebody to read for us. Israel, want to read for us? Yep, page 8, case study A.
Nicholas Young considered himself a lucky man. A German who immigrated to the United States in 1848. Young had worked hard to carve out a living for himself and eventually prosper as the owner of a mortuary in San Francisco. The business allowed him and wife Rosina to purchase a modest lot on top of California Street Hill, where they built a quaint cottage-style home and planted a beautiful garden. Every day, California sunlight and fresh air would stream in through their window. Young had no reason to believe that anything could interrupt his idyllic life, or that any one person could somehow deprive him of the beautiful days he had worked so hard to enjoy. But Young also hadn't accounted for Charles Crocker, a very rich and very petty man, who would eventually become both his neighbor and the bane of his existence. At 6 feet tall and 300 pounds, Charles Crocker cut an imposing figure. He had filled his bank account by being one of the big 4 barons behind the building of the Central Pacific Railroad. By the 1870s, he could afford whatever he desired, and what he wanted was to loom over San Francisco like a gargoyle. Crocker and his wealthy partners began scouting California Street Hill for its scenic views and proximity to the city's financial district. Soon, a group of wealthy men, including Crocker, were buying up all the homes on their chosen blocks. By the time Crocker was finished, he had erected a 12,000 square foot mansion. With its new wealthy inhabitants, California Street Hill was renamed Nob Hill. As the project neared completion in 1876, there was one nagging detail. On the northeast corner of the block, Nicholas Young was reluctant to sell his cottage. His cottage was dwarfed by the mansions going up that he had come to enjoy the neighborhood. With one or both men causing acrimony, the end result was that Young was not moving. At a reported cost of $3,000, Crocker had his workers construct a wooden fence on the land that towered over 3 sides of Young's home. With its 40-foot tall panels, the enclosure acted like a window shade, blotting out the sun and cool air and immersing Young in the darkness.
Okay. So let's take a quick poll. Should Charles Crocker's fence be legally allowed to be stand, yes or no? If you say yes,
No.
raise your hand. If you say no, huh?
What was the question?
Should the fence be legally allowed to stand, legally?
No.
No?
I don't know what the laws are.
Yeah.
So today, what would you say today?
No,
No, that time, yes.
legally, no.
Legally,
I'd say no.
no. Okay. All right.
Even if it's on your property?
Yep, no.
Okay, let's go to the next case. Everyone following the cases? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Not
Next case,
easy.
case study B. Rachel maintains a large and beautiful flower bed in her yard. But one day her neighbor Joe built a high wooden fence between the properties that cast shade over the garden, causing the flowers to die. When Rachel asked Joe why his fence needed to be so high, she was told that it was necessary to protect his birds from cats entering their property. Rachel offered to replace the wooden fence with a glass screen at her personal expense, in order to allow her flowers to receive sunlight without exposing Joe's birds to danger. But Joe refused to allow Rachel to replace the fence without offering any reason. Should Joe be legally required to allow Rachel to replace his wooden fence with a glass screen? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay. So most people say no, some people say yes. Okay. Let's do next case. We're gonna go step by step. Case number 3, case study C, page 11. Michael moved into a new house. Before setting up his own Wi-Fi connection, he realized his neighbors have an open Wi-Fi network. Can Michael use his neighbor's Wi-Fi network without their knowledge?
No.
Huh? No? Anybody say yes?
That's tough.
No.
Lawyer says it's tough. Huh? The question here is illegally. Okay. Huh?
I'm gonna say no.
You say no. You say no.
Rabbi,
You
if
say
you
yes.
know, Rabbi,
Yeah.
if you know the law, then you know the answer. But again, now it's the logic we have to use. So what is it?
Oh. No law, it's air.
You need to know the contract law.
There are rules, there are statutes, so.
It is private property. Now, we all, now, one second. There can be, if you have your Wi-Fi network and somebody else uses it, it slows your own Wi-Fi, right? It slows down your usage. Huh? And you're paying for it.
Yeah, how do you know
Exactly.
that? Left neighbor.
Okay,
right
let's,
neighbor, back
no, we don't know. You are the neighbor.
neighbor.
You are asking yourself, you are the neighbor, right? You're moving. We're assuming this case, make this case more of an argument that the neighbor has unlimited Wi-Fi. He's not home, he's up north. It's not gonna cost an extra penny. It's not gonna infringe on his security. There'll be no hacking. All of that stuff are not a problem. Simply, am I allowed to use it? Yes or no? So
No.
we have a debate here. Most people say no. Okay. The lawyer here is shaking his head. He's not sure.
I would say probably no.
You say probably no.
I would say healthcare.
Huh? You say what?
Healthcare.
I'm asking from a secular perspective.
Yeah, well, it's
It's abandonment. Abandonment? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a legal case for it's abandoned property, and you can pick it up. Okay, I hear you. All right, I'm not a judge today. We're gonna hear you. I'm gonna present you the Jewish view. All right, let's go to the next case study. All right, now last one. Sarah's case study 2D. Sarah's next door neighbor David left on a lengthy vacation. All right, here it went up north. It is difficult to find parking on the street, and David's driveway, situated smack in between the two homes, is now empty. Sarah wishes to park her car there while her neighbor is away. Should Sarah be allowed to park her car in David's vacant driveway without his advance permission?
No.
Yes or no? No.
Yeah, that's pretty clear.
Pretty clear. Okay.
If someone falls, right, while getting out of their car on
Yeah.
property they shouldn't have been on, they can sue the owner of the property.
Okay, good. These are all good.
No.
All right.
Could use his job, right? So that's interesting.
All right, so again, we have 4 cases that we're gonna discuss. Case A, should Charles fence is a crook, fence be allowed to stand? Should Joe be required to allow Rachel replace his fence? And we had the Wi-Fi case, and we had the case with the driveway. Now let's look. Those questions are basically classic questions that conflict between the question is, what is my rights, or versus what is the right thing to do, right? Because if you look at it from the angle, what is my right? My right is my driveway. What is the right thing to do? Perhaps it should not be such an issue. What do you care in case that or the Wi-Fi? What do you care? Let somebody else have enjoyment of something that doesn't cost me anything. We'll discuss it. We'll discuss it further soon. For now, let's quickly look at the screen. We'll share this video.
If God created the universe in 6 days, it certainly did not take 40 days for God to hand Moses.
I can hear it, but I'm so close to it.
Yeah.
People further away.
Let me see if I can switch the volume to this. No, it has to go to the volume is not on the screen, so 1 second.
Closed caption. Closed caption. It doesn't do well with foreign language.
Let's try one.
2 stone tablets. So what was Moses doing up there all that time? He was internalizing a vast body of instruction to transmit to his
Okay, now
people.
can you? On Zoom, can you hear? Sarah, can you?
If God created the universe in 6 days, it certainly did not take 40 days for God to hand Moses 2 stone tablets. So what was Moses doing up there all that time? He was internalizing a vast body of instruction to transmit to his people. So once the smoke and sounds of Sinai subsided, Moses began to teach, and the Jews were most surprised. They'd expected Moses to begin with a detailed series of highly spiritual rituals or meditations, matters that Moses had to go up to heaven to receive. Instead, Moses first launched into topics far closer to earth than to heaven. He rolled out a unique civil system with requirements unlike any other. Here are a handful of surprising examples. The finder of a lost item must proactively collect or secure the item, and then preserve it while actively seeking its rightful owner. Beyond banning defamation, the Torah even forbids gossip among friends. It requires an individual not only to rescue those being harmed, but to act preemptively. It makes it illegal to look the other way when a fellow traveler is hopelessly stuck along the roadside. It mandates respect for the elderly. It criminalizes the malicious delivery of bad advice. It illegalizes the verbal abuse of individuals whose disabilities prevent them from recognizing the abuse. But surely the Jews challenged Moses. God prefers spiritual worship instead of looking out for stranded traitors and fallen bracelets. Ah, replied Moses, I will soon instruct you in Judaism's rituals and festivals, but you must know that these civil laws are also spiritual. You see, God's goal is not for you to transcend the earth, but to change it and make it more heavenly. You will notice that the Torah's legislation is more than a guide to protecting rights and maintaining social order. No, these laws include mechanisms for molding a righteous civilization. From now on, each of you is legally obligated to do the right thing for those around you and to proactively extend yourself in the pursuit of good and righteous conduct. With that, Moses and the Jews launched into a spirited study of Jewish civil practice and its aspirations of a righteous society, a study that flourishes until today.
All right. Okay, we saw that in the screen that the Torah is premised on compassion, goodness. Just the three examples. Do not stand by when someone's life is at risk, which means basically you cannot. It's not again. It's not voluntary. I give the example: if you're standing at the beach, somebody's drowning, and it's no risk for you to save somebody. So if you just stand and watch a person drown, in American law, you're not a nice guy, but can't be liable for his death. In Jewish law, you're obligated to save the person if you have the ability to do so. Not optional. You're as close as a murder if you watch somebody drown and you just watched them. So because basically we're going from my rights to what's the right thing to do, but more than that, it's also compassion and goodness, right? Provide roadside assistance, don't spread gossip. It's not only about saving life, but also to be moral. But how do we know what is moral? What is moral? The right thing to do. What are the values? God gives us these cases. From those cases, I can get a good sense of a foundation of Jewish values, and that's so important that people ask, what is a Jewish value today? Right? What is a Jewish value? Number one, the Jewish value is to teach and study Torah. In order to understand what values are, you've got to study Torah. Just eating latkes and gefilte fish is not a Jewish value, right? But those who come up with their own Jewish values, or say this is a value that is not grounded in God's values, is we got to be careful because then we're not objective. I'm going to go back to this law, this text we read in text 3. Observe God's commandments, do what is right and good in God's eyes. So why does it have to repeat the text? Why does it repeat itself? Observe God's commandment and do what is right and good in God's eyes. If it just says observe God's commandment, it will be enough. Why does it have to say and do what is right and good in God's eyes? So we have here a text that answers that. It's an important text from Nachmanides. And Mark, when we read us text 5, page 13.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. So our sages expounded on this verse and explained that it instructs us to go beyond the letter of the law. In other words, the Torah first exhorts us to observe all of God's commandments, and it now instructs us to be careful to do that which is right and good, even when not explicitly commanded to do so, because God cherishes good and proper conduct. This instruction is very important because it will be impossible for the Torah to exhaustively address all of our conduct with our friends and neighbors, all of our business affairs, and the welfare of society and the world. Instead, after offering multiple specific commandments, such as you shall not go about as a gossip monger, do not take revenge or bear a grudge, do not stand by the shedding of your fellow's blood, do not curse even a deaf person, and stand in the presence of the aged, the Torah then concludes with the generalized commandment to do that which is right and good, meaning to go beyond the letter of the law.
So the Torah calls us to go beyond the letter of the law, right? Observe all the commandments is the body of the law, right? This is what you have to do, right? But do right and good, when not specifically instructed, is the spirit of the law. And because we don't know all scenarios, right? The theoretical cases that the Torah mentions or Talmud mentions, we need to not only look at the body, but more importantly, we need to look what's the spirit of the law. Why is the law this way? Why? The Torah is teaching us to go not only strict, but also go beyond the letter of the law. Now, while the spirit of the law cannot be completely laid out, How can we lay out what's the spirit of the law? Is it up to everyone's judgment to decide what's the spirit of the law? Okay, I will go beyond the letter of the law till here, and I will go till here. How do we define how much beyond the letter of the law do you go? So our sages have laid out a few principles. Let's go with number one principle, and that is the Sodom principle. So we have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom, right? In Hebrew, Sodom. What happened? The society of Sodom, right?
Yeah.
In the times of Abraham, was a corrupt society, and God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at text 6, what the Talmud says, Sodom-like conduct. A person is compelled by law not to act in a manner characteristic of the inhabitants of Sodom. We are forbidden to act like them. What characterized people of Sodom? What is it? So look in the next text, the Talmud refers to as follows, text 7a. One who insists, what is mine, and what is yours, is of average character. However, another opinion maintains that such an attitude is characteristic of the wicked people of Sodom. All right, so let's look at the screen for a moment, right? A person is compelled by law not to act in a manner characteristic of Sodom. What is it? You have a large umbrella, right? And it's pouring. Somebody's next to you. You have room for that person. Just to keep it for yourself is characteristics of Sodom. What is mine is mine. Now, in this piece of the Mishnah, what does it say? There's a debate. If somebody says what is mine, and what is yours, first opinion says what? Average person. Second opinion says what? He's like the wicked people of Sodom. It's pretty, that's pretty harsh.
Yes.
All right? So how do we explain that? He's not a saint, but why would somebody be a Sodom? I'm asking you, if you're standing with your umbrella, right, and it's pouring, and somebody's standing next to you, and you don't give the umbrella to share, are you considered a Sodom person? That's a very harsh statement. Huh? You're not a saint, but why am I Sodom?
Especially in the COVID era.
We're talking, granted, there is no COVID issue, right? I knew this was going to come.
Under normal circumstances, it would be easy to share.
Okay, so we're talking about in a circumstance where it's easy to share. Why is it considered wicked? And how can the Mishnah disagree so sharply? Which one is it? If we're talking about Jewish law, which one is it? Is he the average person, or is it a Sodom-like? So let's look 7b, how this is explained. 7b, page 16. Both statements in the Mishnah are valid because the second view, which classifies such conduct as wicked, refers to those who refuse to permit others to benefit from them, even when they will incur no personal or monetary expense as a result. Such conduct is characteristic of inhabitants of Sodom. So meaning refusing to help others at no cost is the characteristic of Sodom people. By contrast, the first view in the Mishnah, which classifies such conduct as average, refers to who refuse to allow others to benefit from them when doing so would come at a personal or monetary expense. Individuals who adopt this approach cannot be compared to inhabitants of Sodom because they seek simply to avoid incurring losses through the action of others, just as they would not inflict a loss upon their fellow. This indeed reflects the average character. All right, so the average, again, very simple. What is mine, what is yours, average character, what is it? It depends. If one giving the others benefit despite lack of personal loss, then there's Sodom character. If the average character you won't give others the benefit when it comes at personal loss. Okay, so now like if you have a bottle of water, right? Then you're walking on a hike, and somebody else doesn't have the bottle of water, and now do I have to give my bottle of water to the other person? I don't have to, right? What is mine, what is yours. Am I Sodom if I keep the water to myself? I'm thirsty. I need the water. I pay for this water. That's the average captain. But in the case of the umbrella, right? Granted, there's no COVID issue, right? You're just sitting there like, and the guy, and it doesn't cost you anything just to hold it like this. That's Sodom. Okay, clear? Okay. Clear. All right. Now, the Talmud will discuss such other cases when it comes to neighbors. Specifically, neighbors always will come and will always have these types of disputes. Neighbors share certain things, a fence, a tree, etc. So now let's read a Talmud. It's actually in my mind is just clarifies the Talmud clear. In text 8, and then we're going to hopefully able to go to our case studies. Once we read text 8, we'll go back to our case study, and then we can see answer how Torah law will look at these cases. All right. Mark, you read so nicely. Read again text 8.
Sure, no problem.
A reason because you're close and the people on Zoom can hear you. Page 18.
A person has windows set in the lower portion of the wall of his house, and his neighbor desires to erect a building that would block them. The neighbor proposes to solve the problem by installing new windows in the upper portion of the homeowner's wall. If this arrangement won't cause the homeowner any difficulty at all and would not require him to leave his home during the construction, he cannot prevent the new neighbor from performing this construction. The homeowner is compelled by law to allow the neighbor to close the windows on the bottom part of his wall and create new windows higher up. This is because there would be Sodom-like conduct for the homeowner to refuse this accommodation. This principle applies to every situation in which one individual will benefit while his fellow will not lose anything as a result. In such cases, the relevant party is compelled by law to cooperate.
Wow. So what's the deal here? What did we just read?
I'm not visualizing.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
It's a big house, right? Let's say you have a home and your windows are on the lower part of the house. And now somebody wants to build a house next to you, right? It happens to all of us, right? Yeah, you build a house, you pay, and then 5 years later somebody comes and builds its whole house. And as a result, it's going to block the sunshine in your house. So you're upset. Can you stop the person from building the house? Huh? No. However, well, maybe some depends.
Yeah.
There are laws in place, right?
There are laws.
Huh?
There are certain laws in place, depends on the state and the country.
Okay. Now the neighbor proposed a solution by installing new windows in the upper part of the neighbor's house, right? So they will not lose sunlight. Sunlight will come through the top windows. Okay, because I'll pay you. This says I'll pay you for it, and you won't have to move out of your house. You won't have any burden, anything at all. So let's say we live in a society where you can't just build a house next door without the neighbor's permission, right?
Yeah,
So you can just say, I don't want it. I don't care. I don't want it. But the Talmud says, if there will be no burden, no financial losses, and they propose a good solution, then it is not only in the name of the spirit of the law that we should do the right things, we should do what's good. Then he's allowed, not you have to, it would be nice to let him do it, but you have to let him do it. Obligation. Huh?
What windows are too high and already got you have light, you lose your view.
Okay, so again, we can go all different scenarios, just to give a glimpse of how far sometimes the Talmud will go. And now we can debate: is it a loss? Is it not a loss? My structure will be all that stuff. It's very rarely that this will actually happen. But if we take this, because we take this idea of Sodom-like, if there's anywhere a case where Sodom-like behavior, right, meaning there's no financial loss to you, there's nothing you lose out of it, then you must do it. With that approach, let's go back to case study A, right? To Mr. No Good, right? So in case study A, we had the question, Jewish law, what would Jewish law say on case study A? the fence that he put up, was he permitted to put up such a fence?
No,
No, exactly. Just to put up a fence, just to put up a fence to spite him is, I guess today is also spite fence laws, right? You can just put up a big tall fence in front of your neighbor.
I'm sure but there were rules against that type of thing in the Wells, so.
Right. Right. Okay. So that's an easy one. But the spite fence is right from the Talmud right away is a Sodom-like, because why did he put up the fence? Just to annoy his neighbor.
It goes beyond the selfish.
Correct. All right. So how about the second case with Sarah and Rachel? That the guy wants to put a fence to protect his birds, and she proposed a solution to put a glass fence. She'll pay for it, right? So she doesn't lose the sunlight. Joe says, no, I don't want it. Is it Sodom-like? Yes or no?
He's wrong, yes.
He's wrong. He's acting wrong.
Yes.
There's no expense to him. He's not losing anything. So from a secular legal law, he has a right, his fence, he can do whatever he wants. If he says no, no is no. But from a Jewish law, we can force him to have to put in the glass fence. What do you want to say? Yes.
But he explained why he don't want to put a glass.
No, he did
No,
not.
he didn't.
No, he did not.
No.
No, he said why he puts a fence up, because he doesn't want the cats to come into his property. So what's the difference of wood or glass? It's the same height.
The glass, because the gonna be dangerous for the birds.
No,
Because they're gonna
no.
fly right into the-
No.
Yeah.
The birds are already on his.
Yes, the
property.
birds are in a cage. If the case is that there will be even a slight disadvantage or monetary loss to the neighbor, then the neighbor is now required to comply. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, I'll just hear again. Secular law asks, does the fence builder have a right to build? In some secular societies, the spite fence will be illegal, but non-spite fences like Joe's wooden fence would not be. But the Jewish law, okay, now let's go to the, before we get to the Wi-Fi, let's do another case in the Talmud, and that is to do with squatters' rights, okay? Because here we take it, because right now we basically went from the body of the law to the spirit of the law, right? And the only example that we brought how the sages have enforced the spirit of the law is which type of law? Which one? Sodom-like behavior, right? Where there is a win for one person and absolutely no loss for the other. That's called Sodom-like behavior. Okay, I can accept that. That's okay, we can accept that because that's really just, somebody said, you have to be a mensch, right? You have to be a mensch, right? Just the quick answer why we sit in yeshiva all these years is to learn how to be a mensch.
to learn to be a mensch.
How to be a mensch. You know what a mensch means? Everyone knows what a mensch is? Huh?
Good person.
A Yiddish word, it means mensch is a man, but that's a bad translation. And when you say you're a mensch, it means you're a person of good character. You're a decent, dignified person.
Good person.
And that's what we don't, so when you go to school, in school, the emphasis is on academic, right? It's not necessarily to teach good character, to be a good person. It's all about to succeed in the academics. That's in regular schools. In Jewish life, we teach our children through those academic teachings that really the idea is to learn how to be a mensch, how to behave. So now we want to take this, now we want to bring another element of spirit of the law. Everyone's following? Squatter's law. Okay, squatter's right. So here's a case where it's not going to be Sodom.
Where's that?
Take text 9, page 20. Okay. This is a real fun case to all the landlords here. Page 20. You have it? Page 20, text 9. If one lives in his fellow's yard without the latter's knowledge. Does he have to pay him rent or not? The question is in regards to a yard that is not on the market for rent, but the squatter is a person who usually rents. What is the law? Can the squatter say to the owner, what loss have I caused you? Or perhaps the owner can insist, look, you have benefited from my property instead of paying rent elsewhere. This is a case in which one individual benefit while the others does not lose anything. So what do you say? Does he have to pay or not?
It depends the state.
Which state?
Exactly.
In Seattle, what? It's a real case. People squatter. Absolutely. Okay.
In the backyard?
Even in your garage.
So we're not. But hear me out. We're talking here about we're talking about a law-abiding citizen, so to speak, right? We're talking about a law-abiding citizen, like two Jews who want to do the right thing. One Jew is going through a hard time, okay, and he sees the property is vacant. The guy's not he's not renting it out, so he parks there for a few months, right? And then the owner comes and finds out, right? So the question is, number one, here, does the person have to pay rent for the 3 months? So the Talmud concludes, Rabbi, the son of Huna state, my father ruled in the name of the Rav that the squatter does not have to pay rent. For the past. Huh? One second. Does not have to pay for rent. It seems like they blocked a window case, right? There was no loss to the property owner. We're talking about there's absolutely no loss. So if there's no loss, it was a win for him. The right thing is you can't charge him for rent. Okay. How about, can he now evict him? Right? Can he now evict him? What's the
6 months. 6 months.
If the guy says, I don't want you here, right? And the guy says, what do you care? You're going back up north. Does Jewish law say he must let him stay on his property, or can he evict him?
If he's paying rent, then he's allowed to stay. If
No
he's
rent.
not paying
No rent. Obviously, if he pays rent, he can stay.
So it's only timing. Then it's only timing. You're giving him timing, and then you stay to it.
Okay.
If he has no intention on renting the property, he stays for free.
If what?
If he has no intention on renting the property, then the man can
Yeah.
stay for free.
Even if there's even if the landlord, if the owner objects his being present there.
If the
Okay.
owner objects, I think he has to leave, but not if he's paying rent.
Why? Why is he not Sodom-like? What do you care? The guy's in your property. Doesn't hurt you anything. You're not losing any money.
Agreed.
From all right, one more opinion. Yes, Deborah.
What if they have a sign, the guy owns the property?
Yeah.
And it says no trespassing?
Okay.
Then what?
Okay, but let's keep it easy. Let's say there is no sign. Right? So there is no sign. So the Talmud. So the Talmud says he does not have to pay back rent. I like how it puts it. He would have paid rent because he has, he's looking for rent. Like now in Venice, right? It's hard to find a rental property, right? It's almost impossible, right? I'm willing to spend $2,000. I just can't find. Oh, this house is empty. Let me park in there. 3 months later, the guy comes back. The Talmud says, you cannot charge him the rent. Okay. But from the language of the Talmud, it doesn't say you have to keep him there. So look, the Tosfos, which is the commentary on the Talmud, says right here in text 10, on text 10 on page 21, we only compel the property owner not to conduct himself like the inhabitants of Sodom regarding the past. The squatter who resides on his property without paying rent is not compelled to pay him rent for the past. At the same time, it's clear that the property owner has the right to protest the squatter's presence and need not permit the squatter to remain on his property. Okay. But the question is why? Why not? How far? He's not losing any money. in other words, like you say in Talmudic language, it's called nemonoshach, which means Moshe means like on one side, right? If the law says Sodom like law, meaning that if nothing to lose, you have to be nice and do the right thing. Why can't the guy stay in the property? Just say I don't like. It's like the guy who says I don't want the glass fence. But so why is the knowledge of knowing still? Does it lose any money?
It's his choice.
But now in Jewish law, we don't care so much about my right, my choice. We care what is the right thing to do. That's the law is guided by what is the right thing to do. Huh? Both things are about Jewish, yes.
And the squatter knows
That what?
that it's really not right for him to be there. It's like stealing without permission.
1 second. That's a good question. Why is it stealing?
Because it's not his property. It's not his.
Okay.
Abusing the system. The other guy is abusing the system too.
Okay, so it's abuse. So you're saying basically now we have to go back to we don't want to have a society of chaos, right?
Yes.
If we're going to be just nice to everybody and we're going to have to enforce the niceness onto the others, right? Then everyone's going to take advantage of. People are going to start taking advantage of Israel, which is a valid, and that's why probably the answer is right. Once he protests or if he puts up a sign, no, you can't do that. And just to take it a little bit further, and explain more from a not from like my right, but more deeper from even from a monetary. Remember, we said as long as there's no loss, underlining guys. As long as there is no loss, we should give it. We should do it. It's the right thing to do, right? But, and this is in text 11, he makes the case that when you know that somebody's using your property, it's called loss of control. That is, there's some type of value to that as well. So as long as you don't know, okay, guy doesn't know. Slowly we're gonna get into the Wi-Fi. We're gonna get into the Wi-Fi, right?
And real estate laws actually do protect, so you can do that one, or you can't just take off the front door, or throw red ants into the property to get them to leave.
Let's read text 11. We're almost done. Let's read text 11. It's confusing. It's a whole new way of thinking.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about all this. Too much for my small brain.
It's okay, I mean.
We didn't get to the driver yet. Well, we didn't get to the driver yet.
What if you use like oils, something?
Good question. But that's why the driveway probably is not the right thing to do, because there will always be some type of usage. We're talking about cases where there's zero loss to you, right? Like in the fence case, and perhaps also in the Wi-Fi case. We'll see. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's just read text 11. I don't want to discuss it too much longer. 11 because it gets complicated. But let's read it and then we'll go on. In my opinion, the reason Tosafot rules that the property owner cannot be actively compelled to allow a squatter on his property is because compulsion in such an instance will be a forcible negation of the property owner's control over his own property. Most people would object to this. The failure of an individual to consent to something that most people would object to cannot be considered Sodom-like conduct. However, the squatter's presence on the property without the owner's knowledge doesn't negate the owner's control of the property because the owner retains the right to evict the squatter at any time. All right? So, we're not talking about from a legal law, from a secular law. In Jewish law, by the way, I forgot a very important disclaimer, okay? Really important. How do we conduct ourselves? Do we follow Jewish law or secular law? So if I'm a religious, which one do we do?
First, we follow the laws of the land, the country we live in, and then we must follow Jewish law.
Thank you, exactly. In Jewish law, there's a stipulation. It's called Dino de Malchusa Dino. The law of the land is the law. So Jewish law cannot come and overrule secular law.
No, good to know.
It can only supplement. It can only enhance a situation, with exception if two Jews, for example, go into a business deal or they go into a situation and they agree from the get-go that they want to incorporate the Jewish law when it comes between those two, right? Then they agree, meaning we are going to follow Jewish law when it comes to our dealings, how we deal with each other, which is also voluntary because it doesn't stand in the courts, right? You can't come to the court and say, well, in Jewish law we agree. The judge ain't going to accept that, right? Except that there are though exceptions, by the way. It makes it for interesting. There are exceptions to that. There's a good website if you want to read about it. I think jlaw.org, right? These are Jewish lawyers in this country who put together these cases or have comes to sometimes for example family laws, divorce laws. There can be Jewish laws can have a real impact, or there are cases, there's inheritance laws sometimes that can differ in Jewish and not. So there are, and it happens, somebody wrote in his will, I want my estate follow Jewish law, how things get spread, get divided. These are fascinating case studies, and you can read about them. But in general rule is you can't come or the squatter cannot tell the owner, what do you mean? I'm following Jewish law. Well, call the police, So, but most of the laws that we study is not to know exactly what to do, but learn how to behave. Because if I understand this principle of if it doesn't cost me anything, I have an obligation to give the umbrella or stop for the guy on the side of the road. That guides my life. These are values that guides my life. Let's go now to case study C and D. All right, let's go. How would Jewish law look at the Wi-Fi case? What do you say? Let's again, clear. There is no loss to the owner. There is no security issue. There's no loss. He's not going to pay an extra cent.
Let him have it.
Boris, what do you say?
If I use someone's open internet
Yeah.
to download the movies,
Yeah.
this person will be charged with privacy violation.
Yep.
Oh, very good. Very good. There could be privacy violation that you have a contract with Verizon, right? That only you and your gadgets are these, not somebody else.
No, I download movies from dark web, right?
Okay.
So it's
All
not
right.
allowed.
But okay, then right away you're right. That's not permitted. But let's take a case where there is no privacy issues, right? There is no. Let's take a world where there's no privacy issues. There's no contract issues. Simply, very simple case, yes or no. So Jewish law would say that yes, yes, but not. But remember, I'm not even asking. I'm not asking the neighbor. I'm just like, okay, now what I want to know, what does Torah say? Can I or can I not?
Let him have it.
What happens if he finds out? Can he say no, stop using
If
it?
he finds out and says
Huh?
no, to stop using it.
It's is that property? Is that considered property?
I made my living with intellectual, I made my living with intellectual property.
Yes,
It's property.
it's property. Okay, good. All right. Okay. How about the car? Can Sarah park the car in the driveway if there's absolutely no loss? It's not a question. So again, you say no, you say yes. Again, let's assume that there is no oil leaks. There's no. What do you say?
No, you're absolutely right. If there is nothing whatsoever, this is good such if.
Yes.
The spirit of law says if there is no possible loss, no problem, then fine, we're okay. Obviously, when you start changing to it, it could be extra light, then you get to the rubber money case. But I think it's just the guiding principle. As long as there's absolutely nothing, which doesn't usually happen most time in real life, so we have to take that into account. But theoretically, no, it's okay because.
I say okay.
All right.
It's even better, the deeds.
But here, here's really the big difference in the parking situation, right? So let's assume there's no issue. Then Jewish law would say you can park the car there, no problem. In secular law, the owner says, I don't want them to be on the property. I don't want them to park, right? Then you have no right to park the car. In Jewish law, if you say, I don't want you to park the car, it's not enough necessarily. Only if we inflict the control part, right? Only if the conflict, I'm losing control. Your umbrella, right? Again, it's not about my property. My umbrella is not gonna. There's not gonna be anything or any loss by just giving the umbrella to somebody else. So, as long as there is no real loss of control, because your driveway is pretty public, right? It's on the street. It's not real. It's not like a squatter. You can't compare to a squatter sitting in your house, right? People park anyways, or the garbage truck goes there. You don't care really, but you just say, I don't want. And Joshua says, we don't care, we don't want. The neighbor can park there. But in legal law, in secular law, then if you just say no, you're not a mensch, but it's your right. It's your right. Last thing, I'm gonna give one more nice, a classy example. It's not in the book. A modern example. Let's say you live in a condo, right? And you're buying a brand new wash machine, right? And they come and deliver the wash machine, and you see that they cannot fit the wash machine through your steps. Doesn't fit. However, your neighbor has access, and if they bring the wash machine through your neighbor's apartment and bring it to the balcony, from the balcony, they can bring it into your apartment, right? Classic example, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Must the neighbor allow for the washman to come through his apartment, assuming they're not going to bang the walls, there's plenty of room, there's no loss? Must the neighbor allow them, yes or no?
No.
Jewish law says yes.
Jewish law says yes.
Unless there's something section about a
Section.
in the house and Jewish law, it would say, indicate you would have to allow it.
In Jewish law, it says you have to allow it. Not please allow them, not it's nice to allow them. You must allow them. Secular law says
No.
But if you say no is no is no. There's nothing I can do about it.
So we need a law between.
So I guess with a bottle of wine and telling the neighbor how much you love him,
Oh.
you should allow.
That always works. That always works. Okay. Last thing I want you to go to text 12. We'll conclude with text 12. Because so you see there is this Sodom-like behavior. Then there is the behavior that is not Sodom-like, but to do the right thing. And then there's something called the ways of the righteous. And this is a very famous piece of Talmud on page 12, page 24. Rabba Bar Chana barrel of wine was negligently broken by the porters he hired to transport it. So he hired these transporters and they dropped the barrel of wine, right? So Rabbah seized the porter's clothes as payment for the damage. The porter complained to Rav. So Rabbah and Rav were two great sages in Talmud. So Rabbah takes away the guy's clothes because why? I lost $100. You don't have any money. I'm going to take your clothes that's worth $100 as compensation. The porters went, complained to Rav, who instructed Rabbah give them back the clothes. So Rabbah asked, is that the law? Rav replied, yes, as stated in the verse, in order that you follow the path of the good people. Rabbah returned the porters their clothes. The porters complained further to Rav. We are poor and we labored, we slept all day. Now we are hungry and have nothing to eat. Rav told Rabbah, pay them their wages. Rabbah asked, is that the law? Rav responded, yes, as it states in the verse, and observe the ways of the righteous. Right? So, to what extent do you have to do the moral thing? So we learned till now, A, don't be a Sodom-like person, right? And B, if it doesn't hurt you in any shape or anything, then do it. You have to do it. But do I have to actually take a loss for somebody else? Yes or no?
No.
Huh?
There's a key word in this.
Oh, what is it? What is it?
Negligence.
Yeah. The what?
So.
It was a mistake.
So they have liabilities.
Okay, liabilities. Okay, no, okay, it was negligent. They weren't careful, right? They weren't careful. Still, he says, go pay them the wages. Not only can you take away, go pay them the wages. Does he must do so, or he was told to do it?
The
Why?
next question is, can he deduct the value of the spilled wine?
From the wages. Good
From the
question.
wages?
Right, good question. That opens up. So there is that's a whole. So the top.
Even if it's at a loss to you and Hashem will make it up.
And they should do the right thing. Pay for the wine they
Hashem
lost.
always makes someday, somehow.
But the question is also, but how do you do it? What is your right to make them to do everything versus to follow and separate out? Yes, you suffered a loss, and maybe you're entitled to be compensated for that loss. But is it not the compensation acceptable to take away somebody's
Well, maybe
wages?
you're not entitled to make the decision on what
That's
form of remuneration.
exactly maybe what
That's
I'm
where you get
curious.
to
Okay. So very clear, very clear. The last case, he doesn't tell him, he tells him it's you as a sage, you as somebody who is righteous, you should do it. He's not obligated to do it. He's encouraging to do it. So, which in other words, when it comes about the obligation, now we can debate the obligations, right? Can we deduct the wages or not? And of course, the Talmud is full of it, and Talmud will discuss it. But here's a specific case of a special rabbi, and the other rabbi says, for you, your statute, as you are such a statute, you should pay them the wages. Go beyond what you're obligated to do so, which comes out to this in this class that basically three different levels. We have, let's go back here. The basic premise of Jewish law, we have obligations specified by Torah's commandments. All right, these are obligatory. Right, you hurt somebody, you damage somebody, you got to pay. There's no question about it. Then you have doing the right thing in favor of a fellow where there is no loss, which Torah takes as an obligation. Then doing the right thing in favor of a fellow, despite the loss, like in the case of Ralph here, that is not an obligation, but that is encouraged. That's encouraged. So this, if you remember that approach, now we look at all these other cases. Let's just quickly listen to the recap.
Lesson
and then we'll
1.
take questions.
Beyond good neighbors. 1. All legal systems are shaped by their underlying values, but this is especially true of Jewish law. 2. While secular law views its purpose as maintaining social order by protecting individual rights, Jewish law sees its purpose as shaping society by guiding individuals to do what is right and upstanding in God's eyes. 3. Jewish law forbids spiteful conduct. Spite fences are forbidden, and people can be compelled to allow changes to their property that benefit others and come at no personal cost. 4. Certain unauthorized uses of other people's property that cause no harm to the owners are permitted by Jewish law. However, the owner generally retains the right to object. 5. When doing the right thing in favor of a fellow entails a degree of personal expense or loss, Jewish law declines to mandate it, but nevertheless encourages people to adopt this praiseworthy approach.
Yeah. Yes, Mark.
Is there something in the translation that may be missing? Because he's saying, is it the law? And the rabbi is saying, yes. So what else he says afterwards in the verse? He says, he is answering the question saying, it is the law. Is not Rabbah required by law then, since it is the law to do it? And it's an obligation whether he wants to or not, because the law says he does? Or
I think he was telling him, for you, on such a high level, is a moral obligation to do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But
As you.
That's not what it says here. It says it's the law. Yes, it is. And that's what messed with the translation.
Yes, yeah.
From the Hebrew, maybe it doesn't come across.
It's an effect, so that's that.
I think he was referring to.
Righteousness afterwards, but the
Yes,
response to the question is that the law? Yes, it is. Well, if it is the law, does he have a right to not?
Yeah, yes.
Is it not?
Yes, but so you're right. That the Talmud is not a translation. Talmud,
Okay.
no, Talmud is very different than Torah
Mhm.
in that Talmud is actually basically a collection of conversations. So in the conversation itself, it's hard enough when we have like the Constitution, right? How to interpret the Constitution. Now I want to interpret a conversation.
Well, that's what
Yes,
we're
exactly.
doing. Okay.
But it's
Okay.
important. Yes.
All right.
But
That's fine.
yes, yeah.
And that's the word at the end of the sentence, which is observe the ways of the righteous. So he's explaining that the law here is about righteousness, it's about, not about, this is the code of our law.
Well, just because that's the code doesn't mean it's the law. It's the whole, we've already figured out the Jewish law. says not all this.
Actually, if you look in the appendix C in the book, it has the more on this. I don't have it here in my book. On page 54 by you. No, I'm sorry, not page 34. Yep.
Case analysis.
Yes, there you go. I didn't look at it, but here you're gonna see, read this whole thing, case analysis on
Okay.
this, you see classic Talmud in the middle, and then you have all the commentaries on the side debating what the meaning of the conversation is.
Okay.
All right,
Fair
so
enough.
go read this next week. Give us an update.
All right.
Give us an
That
update.
gives me an explanation that makes sense.
Okay, all right. This was a lot of fun. As you can see,
It's a good
it
class. I
can
like
make you start thinking differently on generally how to look at. Is anybody, I just want to conclude, if you want to continue the class, let us know, we'll get you a book for the rest of the course. It's great seeing everyone on Zoom. Bruce, good to see you, Bruce.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Renee. And Howard, welcome. First time here?
Yes, thank you.
Where do you live, Howard?
I live in Venice. I live in the West Villages.
Oh, okay.